One might suppose that in this modern age dominated by the remarkable accomplishments of science, the ancient world of the occult would be dying out. Instead, many occult beliefs and practices seem to be thriving. Gary Shepard has a report.
Despite all efforts at debunking, many mature, well-educated people consult psychics and witches. This young lady is consulting a psychic and the fortune-telling tarot cards to decide where she should resume her college training.
Just what you
Welcome to the Cinematic Void podcast. Cinematic Void is a cult film series that hosts screenings in the Los Angeles area as well as virtually. I'm your host, Jim Branscombe, and joining me, as always, is...
Hey, what's going on? It's Nick Vance, Paranoid Futures on social media. You can find Cinematic Void on the World Wide Web at cinematicvoid.com, as well as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and all major podcast platforms. If you want to support The Void, you can consider joining our Patreon. But yeah, anyway, man, what's going on? What are we talking about today?
Well, we keep talking about how we're going to do this, Freddy's knockoff episode. And we even got to the point that I loaned you the two movies we'll be talking about. And we didn't have time to record, watch them, any of that shit.
Of course, you're talking about Freddy Got Fingered.
Yep.
Freddy's Not Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a name of a movie?
It is, but it's actually a Freddy Krueger movie. So we wouldn't be doing that one.
Freddy's, anyway, go on.
Yeah, whatever. So anyway, we'll eventually get to that when we actually we'll talk about why we haven't had time to do like a more like discussing films episode, and we've been doing a lot more of like talking shit and talking about the upcoming Cinematic Void lineups and stuff. But for this episode, we're going to go over the April lineup at the Lost Fields 3. But I also think before we do that, we'll kind of recap some things that have been going on and circle back as to why we haven't been doing more traditional episodes as of late, which mostly has to do with time and our schedules and being busy as fuck. So, recently it's, midway March as we're recording this, and been doing the March Movie Madness lineup, which has been fucking killing it at the Lost Fields 3. Sold out both matinee and popcorn, and coming up on Monday, as we're recording this, Anguish is getting close to sell out, and Targets will definitely be sold out by the end of the month. So looking at least 3 out of the 4 selling out. Should mention Joe Dante came out for matinee. Fucking great Q&A.
Cool.
Incredible Q&A. He showed up like maybe halfway through because he's like didn't want to watch it, but once he got in there and was able to watch it with the audience, he kind of was touched. He's like, wow. He's like, where were you people back in like 93, 94? And someone's like, I wasn't born yet.
Oh, fuck.
Like most of the audience hadn't seen matinee, but Joe's incredible filmmaker, credible lover of film. He said some really nice things about the movie-going experience that we've talked about repeatedly on the podcast. And I'm going to just drop in a little quote he said from that Q&A here.
Movies that made us care were the ones that we saw with an audience. And, no matter how old you are, and no matter how far you want to go back, I mean, you have experiences about seeing movies that involved getting up out of your chair, going to the movie theater, having the experience, leaving, talking about the movie with your friends. It was an experience. It wasn't just a channel change. And I think that the whole idea of like theaters like this, and the Cinematheque and all the other theaters that are running movies for people to see, are essential to the future of movies.
So that was Joe Dante, director of matinee, as well as Gremlins, The Howling, Small Soldiers, Inner Space, Piranha, Hollywood Boulevard, all kinds of fucking classics. Like I kind of feel like Joe might be heading towards his like John Carpenter moment. Because like maybe like a decade ago, like John Carpenter was like, he made Halloween loved, but like now John Carpenter's like on this whole other plane. And I'm kind of happy to see like filmmakers of that era kind of getting their flowers.
Yeah.
In a substantial way. Not just like, hey, you were a great filmmaker, you made cool movies in the 80s. Like, no, here are your fucking flowers. Your movies are fucking timeless. Let's elevate you.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of, I'm not saying, Joe's just a director. John also was a music composer and that kind of stuff. But it's nice to see filmmakers that like was probably beloved by both of us growing up, who kind of got, grinded up in the Hollywood system a little bit, come back and, get to shine again and get to like enjoy their career and how meaningful it actually was for a lot of people to watch those films. So that's good stuff. Also showed Popcorn with actor Jill Schoelen. That's another really good Q&A. Jill was really sweet, even though she was like tired. She's like, I think it was the time change or whatever. Blame everything on fucking daylight savings time or whatever. Is it daylight saving? What we call this? It's set clocks back or forward or whatever.
We sprung forward.
Sprung forward and
because it's sprung time.
Sprung time, yeah. Whatever. Which leads us to, like, that happened on a Sunday before Popcorn. On the Saturday before the time, skipped an hour and everyone lost an hour of sleep. My dumbass, well, not my dumbass, because I didn't pick the day, so I can't take credit for doing a marathon leading up to, like, springing forward, but was the 7 Deadly Sins Marathon. And last episode, we couldn't really talk about it because all the movies were a secret. And I guess we could, talk about it now. You were in the projection booth for how many of the movies?
The final 3 or 4.
Okay.
I have to think about it for a moment, but at least 3, maybe 4.
I
got there, it was just starting up joysticks.
So you came back right at the, after the dinner break.
No, I was there for the one before. It was one before it.
That was a Funhouse.
I ran Funhouse, yes.
Okay, so you ran, you run the last 4 out of the,
okay, cool.
The back half of the marathon. So I guess we'll talk about it. Like, I think there were certain expectations, like ticket sales wise, and I'll just be the first to admit that it probably underperformed slightly. And there's probably a couple reasons. 1, it's in Santa Monica. 2, there's a certain segment of people who don't like daytime marathons. They want to do overnight. 3, none of the movies were announced.
It was damn overnight enough.
Yeah, it got done just shy 1 a.m., which was the advertised end time. And I was like, nah, probably be like anywhere from 15 minutes to a half hour later. But no, ended right on fucking time. And that was even like with sketches and little video interludes, like Deanna Rooney. Shout out to Deanna, who's done stuff with Cinemass Movie and has done stuff at like Lost Fields 3. She came out and like basically we did a sketch in front of almost every movie. I think Joystick, she just kind of handed out Severin grab bags.
Cool.
And yeah, it was, despite everything, I'm glad I got a chance to do this. Even though, like, I did run into some, when you're doing a marathon, they're expensive to put on. So I had a budget I had to be within. And there was a couple movies that I had originally had planned that I thought I could get, ended up having to drop out for various reasons. But I think the lineup was pretty fun. I think the only thing, like, second-guessing wise, and this is just me second-guessing, is, like, I probably wouldn't have done Halloween 3. But I had to pick quick, and, like, Universal, like, for flat fees was the cheapest. And staying within a budget. So something for keep in mind for all you film programmers and stuff. It's like, you got to be money conscious because you got to be able to make money back. You can show all the greatest movies in the world in a marathon, but like if it's really expensive and you can't make your money back, you won't be showing too many more movies after that.
Right.
But should talk. Oh, what are you going to say?
Well, real quick though. So let's name them.
Yeah.
It was Warriors.
Yep. The Warriors, which was I don't think anyone saw that one coming.
Nice.
And I love the Warriors, and I've been wanting to watch it in a theater again. And it played like gangbusters. Like most of the audience hadn't seen it, or maybe not most, but there was a good section of the audience who hadn't seen the Warriors. So after everyone was on like a real big high after watching the Warriors, what do? I show a fucking grimy, sleazy, really nasty Italian film, Beyond the Darkness, directed by Joe D'Amato. It's got necrophilia. It's got like hints of just weird shit going on in it. First of 2 kind of, movies that involve someone getting a bad hand job. Not that I was trying to do that as a theme, but there's a lot of secret themes in here.
When it happens.
When it happens. It was the Italian language print ended up playing, and it definitely it definitely broke some people. Which is good because it's like you're gonna weed out the weaklings, so to speak. And then because I was nice, I did Halloween 3, and Halloween 3 was like kind of a last minute like addition to it. And part of it was just like so Deanna and I could do this dumb bit where she would play me and I would play Dom Atkins.
I mean, it's truly great. True.
I mean, Halloween 3 played great with a crowd, but it's a movie that's played a lot, and it's just like, I originally it was going to be Neon Maniacs, and the only reason Neon Maniacs didn't go in there because the archive that has the only print of Neon Maniacs wasn't loaning out prints right now, so it was completely off the table. Like there was no way of getting it. So once Neon Maniacs dropped out, I had another film which was going to be The Boys Next Door, which Severin had the rights to. And I talked to Severin, they thought they still had the film print, but they actually had shifted off, and that was at AGFA too, so I didn't have access to that.
Oh, okay.
And then it just came down the wire, and like it had to be Universal Film, and I kind of flip-flopped between doing 3 O'Clock High or Halloween 3, and I was just like,
Halloween 3 is just going to play better.
it's going to play better. I love 3 O'Clock High. And like in retrospect and like second guessing myself, it's like maybe I should have done 3 O'Clock High. But you don't know. You don't know how it plays and it unfolds. And then after Halloween 3 was the Funhouse, which I didn't originally get to show on film when I showed it, so played the nice Universal print. Had a little bit of a dinner break, and then came back for Joysticks, which I knew was going to divide the crowd. You're either all in or all out on Joysticks.
No doubt.
It's like, my friend of the Void, Mike Felix, kind of put it best. It's one of the funniest comedies where none of the jokes land. Like for a sex comedy, it just like, but that's kind of the charm of it. And then you have like John Grease, Uncle Rico as King Vidiot, which I think I think people probably know him as like, Uncle Rico, but I always think of him as King Vidiot because it's such a fucking great role. And you have Joe Don Baker just, being Joe Don Baker. And like, again, it ain't a movie for everyone. It's pretty fucking juvenile and all that, but like there's just something about it that like I love, and I can't justify it beyond anything, which is going to come in play later for the last movie. After Joysticks, we showed Silent Rage with good old Chuck Norris, and probably my favorite sketch of the night that we did with Deanna. Deanna came out as Charles Bronson. Originally, we were going to make this big deal about how I like Wrong Chuck, but then like the bit was just me just yelling Wrong Chuck at her, and she just turned around and the Charles Bronson laughed. Like that was probably my favorite of the weirdo bits. Although the giant box of popcorn she was for the Funhouse was just fucking absurd. Like no one knew what the fuck was going on. She also played Luther from the Warriors and did the bottle clanking on the figures. And he's like, Jimmy, come out and play. And she was the Black Glove Killer for Beyond the Darkness as a joke because wanted to give the expectation that we were going to show a giallo and no intention of it all.
Sweet.
Lots of misdirection. And speaking of Italian films, the final film of the night is one of the greatest achievements in cinema, which is Burial Ground, which again probably alienated half the audience. You're either all in or all out with Burial Ground. And of course, Deanna came out and played Michael, who's portrayed in the movie by dwarf actor Peter Bark. Someone said, like, I was wondering why they had a dwarf play the kid in this movie. And then about, 10 minutes in, I realized, oh, that's why. But Burial Ground is like, it's a wild experience, and I've saw nothing but 5-star and 1-star reviews for it on Letterboxd. It's definitely a great divider. Yeah. It's also funny because when you're running, you kind of freaked out because the last reel was like there's a giant like black bar on the side. You're like, what the fuck is going on? And I've seen Burial Ground, a couple of different prints. We used Bob Murawski from Grindhouse Releasing's print of this, but I've also seen Harry Grower's print, and Phil Blankenship from the New Beverly has one. He was asking me, he's like, does last reel, the print you show, have that giant black bar on the side? I'm like, yep. So what that is that when they were striking prints, they misframed it. Mm-hmm. So that's why there's a giant fucking black bar on the side.
It's wild.
All theatrical prints of Burial Ground have it. Strange. But, it was a long day. My girlfriend Leslie flew in from Maryland. She actually came out, and we'll talk about some of this later in Rewatch. Listen, but she came out she didn't come out for a specific, but she went to Irreversible with me, and I saw you there. And homie, friend of the Void, Nikolai, was there, which we'll talk about more of how he's going to end up on an FBI list at some point.
Yeah.
Very much. But, yeah, she came out, she watched, we skipped the Funhouse, we went and had dinner, and that was kind of the movie I planned on skipping. No disrespect to the Funhouse, but I was more interested in watching the other stuff. And I was like, I wanted to have a long break. And plus, That's probably probably the first marathon in years outside of skipping Funhouse that I sat through from start to finish. Yeah. Like I think the last time, well, no, that's not true. When I did the January Giallo-thon back in 2020, in the pre end of days, that was also a daytime one. I'm gonna stand by that. I like daytime marathons. Yeah. I don't like overnight ones. I'm just too old for that shit. It's like when it's like 5 a.m., it's like, because I think back in my 20s and how I did it, it's just like, it was fun, but now, like, in my 40s, fuck that shit. Yeah. I know some people feel the exact opposite, but it's like, getting out of the movie theater at 1 a.m. and getting back to Hollywood from Santa Monica at like 1:30 and just crawling in the bed. Beautiful. It was, but I think overall it was successful, but like, at some point, because that was the 7-year anniversary of Cinematic Void, people were like, what are you going to do? Like, I think Mike Felix like 7 more years, and like, I can't imagine like doing this for another 7 or whatever. In which, I don't know, is one of those things you start thinking about your mortality or program mortality, and probably not the episode to get into it, but like it, had some thoughts about it afterwards. But, overall, it's like people seem to have a good time. Except for the people who probably really didn't like Joysticks or Burial Ground. Mm-hmm. And Beyond the Darkness. I guess I put 3 polarizing movies in a marathon. So, maybe Halloween 3 was the right call.
Yeah, I think so. You got to throw in a crowd pleaser.
I mean,
and Warriors as well, but...
Yeah, you start with Warriors and then just, like, hit them with, like, fucking dark and, like, just bleak and miserable fucking movie.
Everyone seemed pretty... the stuff I saw on social media, everyone seemed pretty pleased with the films, like, with the surprise. No, I didn't see anyone that was just like,
Yeah, I mean, if there was, it's like, I would just ignore it anyway, because it's just like, marathons are hard. Like, people do it every Halloween or just do it in general. It's like, doing a marathon and trying to, like, balance out between showing, like, things you think people should see versus crowd pleasers versus, like, things to, draw an audience. It's all, and like I went in, like everyone went in cold.
I mean, shout out to all the people that came out, because I barely want to go to a movie that I already know I want to see. And to just go to the fucking theater and just hope for the best, man, I don't know.
I mean, it is kind of Russian roulette if you think about it. Like, very, very much.
Big respect to anybody that came out, straight up. Like, and yeah, I thought it was a cool lineup.
No, I mean, I do want to say, like, the one thing I noticed is, like, obviously there was always going to be an audience drop off as the night progresses, but like, from maybe the Warriors to like the last movie, still a pretty good crowd. There's a lot of people that hung in there to the end.
Yeah, fuck yeah, respect.
Yeah, and like, I want to thank everyone for coming out and celebrating like 7 years of Cinematic Void. Like, I will say a couple things, and I'm not saying this to toot my own horn, but like, I had no way of saying it when we started and ended the marathon, but like that opening applause, like coming out and no one knew what the fuck they were about to see, was just incredible.
Fuck yeah.
Like, I fucking thought I was gonna start crying on stage. It was kind of emotional. And I did some other things. I for the first and last time, I did the full Detective Song of Astros for the intro. I know I showed it to you, but basically I just the version that plays in front of most Void shows and a little bit that plays in like on the podcast is like, song's like a 3-minute song, and I cut it down to like 90 seconds. So for this, because of the anniversary, I just played the whole song and kind of filled up the first half of the song. And like, it was kind of cool to see. And then at the end, when Burial Ground, like as I was walking off, it was like a weird, I don't want to say weird, but it was just, I guess it was weird to me because I wasn't expected, but it was another like touching moment, people just like applauding.
Cool.
It was like doing a victory lap of some sort. You never think about showing Burial Ground at like 11 o'clock at night as like you're in a victory lap. But I guess in terms of what that was, yeah. So, I mean, that was the marathon. It was, it was great. And then like on Monday, I went and did Popcorn, which, it's a lot of fucking movies. It's a lot of movies that like have your girlfriend fly out for and sit through. I think 8 movies. Oh, no, yeah. We've talked a lot about in-theater Cinematic Void here, but by the time this podcast comes out, the Cinematis movie will be back for a little season, I would say.
Okay.
Like 3 episodes. pretty sure one episode's already played by the time this come out. None of them come out at this point, but like doing 3 episodes, 2 on YouTube, 1 Patreon exclusive. Did a little bit of a Patreon drive to kind of like, you know, build up viewership and how many episodes do. I think like the max I would have done is like 5 total episodes, and like, you know, didn't hit that mark, but like, you know, hit enough that doing new episodes.
Oh,
so
cool.
I'm kind of excited. The way, and we've talked about this previously, like Cinematis movies, like just going to come back and do kind of like little mini seasons where it's weekly for like a couple weeks and then like take a break and come back with occasional special in there. I think after this run in March, April, there's going to be like a Camp Void special, or maybe not Camp Void, but let's just say Camp Void because it's going to be summertime. Yep. So do that. And I don't know. I've been getting all that stuff ready. I actually wrote out all my like host segments before coming over here today, but I didn't have time to film them. So that's what I'll be doing on Sunday. The day of the Lord is not stopping working on Cinematic Void shit. But yeah, I'm kind of excited for the comeback, and I'm kind of excited to see how things go. I guess, you know, we're going to take a quick break here, but when we return, we're going to talk about the Occult April lineup here on the Cinematic Void podcast.
Witness the power of the tarot.
Well, he's older. Old enough to be your father?
He's 48, and I'm 25.
Is he your teacher?
You're incredible. My husband is driving me crazy.
I see the devil card. He wants to dominate you like he's your king.
Exactly.
He tells you how to dress, how to talk, where you can go.
Yes. Wow. You're describing the situation perfectly.
I see the Empress. Is someone pregnant?
Wow. I wasn't going to tell you that, but...
But it's not your current girlfriend, is it?
No, it's not. It's my ex-girlfriend. This is amazing.
The King of Cups card shows a very faithful man, one who loves you deeply, by the way.
Well, I found out he's had about 10 times the number of past lovers that I've had.
Look, his past history is just that, history. Now all he wants is you.
Caution, a tarot card reading may be very personal and intense. Be prepared for amazing revelations. Call for your free tarot reading now.
Call 1-800-654-3128.
Welcome back. We're heading to a new month of 2023, which means a new lineup over at the Los Feliz 3 for monthly residency, where we screen a movie every Monday for the most part. And you brought up a valid point, because I don't really have a name for this series. Normally, like, you know, Killer Obsession, January Giallo, March Movie Madness, shit like that. I wrote down as like a filler, like I've called this like 70s Occult, or Cinematic Void takes you on an occult trip. I think I wrote down for this was Occult April, and you're like, nah, doesn't have a good ring to it.
It's I think just April Occult sounds better. Just April Occult, January Giallo, April Occult.
Your valid point, because I was always a stickler for anyone who said like Giallo January. It's like, no, it's January Giallo. It sounds better.
Yeah, it just sounds wrong that way. It sounds backwards.
Yeah, so I agree with you. So we're gonna be talking about the April Occult lineup. And week 1 is, I decided to like kind of push the limits of what is or isn't a Cinematic Void movie. I think this fully is, but I think at a certain point, once the Criterion or Die crowd get a hold of something, they're like, this is only, you know, hard art house or whatever bullshit, you know. I mean, you would know better than me. You have a Criterion podcast.
Yeah, keep your hands off our Valerie and the Week of Wonders.
Which, yeah,
we need you to.
You don't need me to fucking sleaze and scum it up, is that what you're saying?
Taint the,
Don't taint the fucking already, like, weird art house horror movie.
I actually haven't seen this one.
Wow. And, well, maybe you'll have a chance to see it. Or you might actually project this one.
That'd be cool.
So, yeah, the first movie we're kicking off April Occult with is Valerie and Her Week of Wonders. It's from 1970, and I tried to look up how to pronounce this person's name. Didn't find much. So they're Czechoslovakian, or what is it Czech Republic? What is Czechoslovakia called now? I should probably look this up, because I know it's changed because of how the Eastern Bloc has fluctuated over the years and lack of Russian control.
Istanbul was once Constantinople.
Yes, definitely one of these scenarios. It's definitely changed names. So, but this film is part of the Czech New Wave, and it's directed by, I'm trying to figure out if the J is a H, a J, or a Y. And we never got clarity on it online. Maybe it's either Jarmil Years, Harmel Hears, or Yarmil Years. There's a good chance all 3 of those are fucking wrong, but look, I made an effort. So, but it's a really cool movie. It's part of like the Czech New Wave that was happening in the late 60s, early 70s. Milos Forman, who went on to direct like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and like, Man on the Moon and The People vs. Larry Flint. He, started making movies, including Loves of a Blonde. Also, probably the most famous Czech New Wave movie, Daisies, which is also in the Criterion Collection. Criterion or Die. But, this one is... It's really interesting because it's based on like kind of a folklore fairy tale thing from like a Czech author, but like they definitely kind of changed it up because it's not really like, I mean, it's still a fairy tale, but it's not like I want to say more like, how do I put it, like more, I guess, classical fairy tale, but in the sense of I can't think of the word. I want to say King Arthur, but it's not like that. Maybe something like that. It's more like those kind of times. But the way it's presented in this movie, it's definitely more kind of like, I'd say, gothic horror.
Okay.
And I think what, the movie's kind of like part coming of age story / sexual awakening, gothic horror, and surrealist nightmare. And, it's beautifully shot. There's lots of haunting, incredible images in it. It's going to definitely ruffle some people because there's a lot of taboo subject matter just based on it because it's, a girl that's played by an actual 14-year-old girl being lusted after lots of grown men who are also vampires. So you got vampires, zombies.
So they're even older than you think they are.
Yeah, so that...
They're like, there's hundreds of years age difference.
Yeah. But yeah, there's that. There's incest angles and stuff like there's definitely things that probably like if you take a literal 2023 lens to, you're going to be really uncomfortable. But I think by design, the movie's supposed to make you uncomfortable. But it's definitely very poetic in how it plays out. And it's like, I don't know. I hadn't seen it, and I was really excited when Criterion put this out originally. And it's just kind of been on my list. And I thought at some point the Cinematheque would just show it outright. And when I was like thinking of like April, I had a couple different lineups of different like very like one was more like just straight up witchcraft, and like I think I had like Teen Witch and things in there, and I just kept messing with it, and then it kind of like honed in on like this more 70s occult vibe. And I wouldn't say this is outright like a cult movie. There's definitely a lot of occult imagery in it, but I think it fits, and I think it's a real interesting way to kick things off. And it's kind of twofold. It's one, pushing the envelope of what is or isn't a cinematic void movie. Two, dabbling in bringing that Criterion crowd. Like I didn't learn my lesson from Hour of the Wolf, but we'll see. I mean, I'm also kind of curious how it plays with the audience because like it's definitely like a very specific vibe. So that's going to be week 1. For week 2, we're going to bring in a film directed by kind of a familiar face because, I've screened 5 other movies by this director. And of course, we're talking about George A. Romero's Season of the Witch.
Hungry wives.
My evening is free.
On a diet of men.
Yeah, you're not bad in the sack, Mrs. Robinson.
Not bad yourself.
Everything women could want out of marriage, except the one thing they crave most. Joan, available. Shirley, dissolving her problems in drink. Marion, dabbling in witchcraft. They are all hungry wives with an appetite for diversion. Gambling with life and death.
Son of a...
Hungry wives lead normal lives, or do they?
One of these days you're gonna find yourself lying there with some jackass between your legs.
What goes on while their husbands are at work?
You are sick, woman.
You know what I was doing.
Bald in the next room. And you go with it. Because you didn't know how to handle it.
I didn't know what to do.
I'll tell you how to handle it. You kick some ass, damn it. You kick some ass!
Hungry wives.
As I was stating earlier, this would make the 6th different Romero film I've screened. I've done Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead, so the Dead trilogy. I've done Martin in 16mm, and I did a restoration of the Crazies way back in Beyond Fest 2016, Void Year 1.
I'm actually surprised that you're just now getting to Season of the Witch.
Well, originally, I did a double feature Beyond Fest. It was with Arrow Video. It was going to be the Crazies and Season of the Witch. It was 2 restorations. However, they couldn't find the materials to do the restoration of Season of the Witch at the time. So it ended up getting pulled, and I just threw a Hail Mary and said, like, can I show Martin on 16? And got okay. So Martin replaced Season of the Witch. And it's definitely been floated in various lineups of things I've done over the years. And, you know, there's definitely, I think, at different points, I thought about playing it last year when I started doing the weekly residency at the Los Feliz 3, and just never found a home for it. So I was kind of happy to put it in. And one of the things about it is that, despite the filmmaker George Romero and the title Season of the Witch, it's not really an out-and-out horror movie. It's more of a drama with like kind of a periphery of occultism in it. It's basically about a woman that's like, kind of bored and sexually frustrated with her life, and she kind of wants to find an avenue to kind of like open things up, and she starts experimenting with witchcraft. And it's, if you know anything about George Romero's career, after he made Night of the Living Dead, he wanted to pivot away from horror, and he made a movie called There's Always Vanilla, which is a straight-up drama. This isn't a straight-up drama, but like it's kind of the same trajectory, except there's little bits of horror element, and there's some blood and things like that in this movie. But the movie was originally called Jack's Wife. That's what it was shot as, and what he wanted to release it as. The distributor is like, well, we got to sell this as something, because like maybe occult stuff wasn't as big when it came out, so they released it as Hungry Wives and tried to sell it as a sexploitation movie, like a softcore like kind of thing, which this movie definitely is not.
Okay.
It's, I think there's a little bit of nudity, but like it ain't nothing to like. It ain't like a fucking full on like Russ Meyer movie or something like that, or any of the like cheerleader or any of the corpsmen like nurses or like stewardess or any of that kind of shit. It's not a sexploitation movie. It's a drama. And I know at a certain point they decided to, and this is later on, is when Dawn of the Dead became a massive hit, the distributor who had the rights to this movie decided like, why don't we sell it as an outright horror movie? So it was released as George A. Romero's Season of the Witch, which I can't remember at what point that the Donovan song came into play. Like, they definitely licensed the Donovan song and stuck it in the movie. And I think this is a print that's coming from a private collector, and I think it's pre that, so like it might not even have Season of the Witch in it. It might just be the Hungry Wives print.
Oh, wow. Wild.
So I'm kind of curious about it, like, just because it's just like you're watching the movie in probably its most unrepresentative form, or no, probably closest to its representative form. It's this is what happened to exploitation films or indie horror movies or anything like that. Once the distributor got a hold of it, they had to try to fucking milk money out of it. Yeah. So that's why you see, like, case in point, the greatest Bigfoot movie ever made, Night of the Demon, is called Night of the Demon because Bigfoots were out of vogue. So they sold it as a fucking demon movie. And you see, like, how many movies got retitled, like something to do with Last or a house that's, near House by the Lake or whatever. Like, none of those movies were originally called that, but if you get tied in The Last House on the Left, let's make a fucking buck. Yeah. The biggest one is Tower of Evil, which was released in like the early 70s, got re-released as Beyond the Fog to cash in on John Carpenter's Fog.
Oh, wild.
Yeah, so it happened all the time, and it happened in this movie. Like, it's from a movie that's called Jack's Wife, which is a drama with some occult elements, to Season of the Witch, Romero's witchcraft movie, even though it's like still a straight up drama. But I don't know. I'd been kind of wanting to screen this movie for a while. And it's kind of the last of, let's say, Romero's like big 70s period. And I think it's also, is kind of the beginning of his like creative run of like doing like, you know, he made horror movies, but he also had something to say, and like, you know, this movie's dealing with like the women's liberation movement on top of it in a very like, you know, even-handed, you know, pro women liberation kind of way. This was him like also leaning his political side, and he had the Crazies, which is like a little bit of like, you know, maybe Dawn of the Dead to some extent, or like a warm up for Dawn of the Dead, like taking whatever he did with Night, amping it up, and being like the segue to get to Dawn. Then you have Martin, which is also a drama with a vampire who may not be a vampire. So there's a lot of that going on. Yeah. And I think like, you know, this run ended with Night Riders, which is, you know, his big jousting biker movie, which is insane that like anyone ever funded that. But like, you know, Dawn was a big enough hit, so it's like, you want to put Ed Harris in a fucking like King Arthur outfit and have him fucking jousting on a motorcycle? Go to it.
Is that post like Mad Max or something? How does that even exist? What is that?
I mean, like a lot of these movies, it's a personal metaphor, because like George was after Dawn, studios were actually coming to him like, let's get in the business, because horror movies were booming. Mm-hmm. So he made this movie about like, you know, doing what you love and believe in or selling out. And that's very apparent in this movie, because like, not that we need to talk about Night Riders or in Season of the Witch, but no, like,
great.
I think like the Season of the Witch through Night Riders is like his most interesting creative arc. Cool. With Dawn just being like this, you know, monolith of like making a sequel to like one of the most infamous and famous like, you know, horror classics, which like took a, you know, it was an instant horror classic, but because this is the only time I'm going to say like that losing its copyright kind of helped it out, because it was played so much on TV and drive-ins and like all that stuff, because it was always in the subconscious, or in the outright conscious, I should say. It kind of elevated where Dawn came out as a sequel. Of course, that's going to make fucking money. And, you know, that was like after Night Riders, he did Creepshow, which I'm not the biggest fan of. I don't think it's a bad movie, but I think we talked about it like one of the Halloween episodes. I think it was part 4 of all the Halloween series when we talked about anthologies and stuff like that. I think that's the episode. I can't remember what number it is, but like getting to like my opinions on Creepshow, which aren't shared by a lot of people. I don't think it's a bad movie. I just don't think it's a great movie. Where I think this run of this period of Romero is like, you know, it's like being an artist while also, you know, dabbling in genre stuff and doing interesting things with it. So, I mean, I'm really stoked to show that. For week 3, we are going to be switching gears. Still going to be occult elements, but shit's going to get wild, because we're showing Alejandro Jodorowsky's The Holy Mountain.
Nothing in your education or experience can have prepared you for this film. Alejandro Jodorowsky's The Holy Mountain. The Holy Mountain is a film completely outside the entire tradition of motion picture art. It is outside the tradition of modern theater. The Holy Mountain is a film outside the tradition of criticism and review.
I don't know what to say about this movie, because it's just a fucking masterpiece. You've seen it, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. And for those you haven't, like, I'll just read the very simple plot. In a corrupt, greed-fueled world, a powerful alchemist leads a Masonic character and 7 materialistic figures to the Holy Mountain, where they hope to achieve enlightenment. Sounds simple. Not really. It is one of the, I think, let's just say, like, it's one of the greatest midnight movies ever made. But it's also probably one of the greatest movies just outright made. And it's probably also one of the most insane fucking movies ever made.
Yeah. The
fact that, like, you know, the Beatles had money in this, or at least their, was it their manager? I forget what the guy's name is. And at one point, George Harrison was supposed to be the star of it. And he objected to having his anus clean on camera. And as opposed to having a stand-in or not shooting the scene at all, Jodorowsky's like, fine, you won't be in the movie, and cast someone else. Which is like, if you think about it as like, could you imagine George Harrison in this movie?
Yeah, right on. More of a Ringo kind of character.
I don't know how Ringo feels about anus washing. I mean, no one's probably asked him. Probably for good reason. Ringo, would you have been in the Holy Mountain and got your anus washed? I can't imagine how that goes. But yeah, this movie's fucking incredible, and like this was kind of the no-brainer I stuck in there. Like, as I've been programming, maybe more specifically this year in particular, like as I look at lineups, I'm like, what's the absolute banger? What's going to like sell out or be close to sell out? And what can I take chances on and do interesting things, and trying to find that balance. And I'll just be blunt and say the Holy Mountain was like, that's the banger.
Yeah.
That's the thing that makes the whole series, like, you know, that'll make up for the ones that maybe, I don't want to say underperform, but the ones that we're only going to go to a certain level. You know, Holy Mountain kind of makes that okay.
Yeah.
And that's more just, you know, programming philosophy stuff. But yeah, it's, what else can I say? It's probably going to be a wild screening. It's hasn't sold out yet, but it's headed real quick there, and been having some quick sellout to LO3. Like normally,
I just dare suggest that I think you may find the same way that you might have a little bit of a different crowd with Valerie. You know, not your typical CV crowd.
Oh no.
I think more the same with Holy Mountain.
Oh yeah.
You're going to find a lot. It's not going to be folks that are familiar with what you do.
Oh yeah, and it might be the first and only time they show up, unless they show like El Topo or Santa Sangre or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or if we offer free mushrooms on entry.
Yeah. Something to think about.
It's a good marketing ploy. I mean, you know, the people are going to come fucking tripping.
Yeah, hell yeah.
This is like the 2001, like trying to hit that fucking, dropping that ass and hoping you hit the fucking Stargate sequence at the right time. Mm-hmm. Except this whole movie is just the Stargate sequence. So at any point, whatever, if you're coming in, you're indulgent, at any point that hits, you'll be okay. Yeah. Or you'll be in the worst fucking time of your life, because the movie's just a mind fuck. Mm-hmm. So stoked to be showing it. And again, that's the banger of the four. And for the last movie in April Occult, this was one I actually tried to show back in 2018 when I was doing New England Nightmares, and I did a triple feature for it where I did like authors, New England authors. So I did Stephen King, H.P. Lovecraft, and the fake author from In the Mouth of Madness with Sutter Kane. Mm-hmm. Read Sutter Kane, bro, or whatever that fucking line. I don't think there's a bro in there, but every time I think of Sutter, when someone says, "Do you read Sutter Kane?" I just see bro at the end, and I know it's not there, and I'm completely creating something that doesn't exist. But it's just like, so yeah, this is, I think it's interesting because it's one of the really earliest Lovecraft. I think it's interesting because it's one of the earliest Lovecraft adaptations, and it's the Dunwich Horror.
The nights are darker. And night is when it happens in the Dunwich Horror.
Come back, old ones, princes of darkness, and repossess the earth.
The Dunwich Horror, based on H.P. Lovecraft's terrifying tale of those who explore the unspeakable. Starring Sandra Dee, Dean Stockwell, Academy Award winner Ed Begley, Sam Jaffe. He believes the history of horrendipity written here. The love story of a girl looking to the future, and a boy dedicated to the mysteries of the past. He invokes the unspeakable.
Ya, Satha.
She invites it.
You're one of us now.
It's a depthless paradise of terror where fear eternal lives. to life.
I've never heard anything like that.
Because when most people think H.P. Lovecraft adaptations, they go immediately to Reanimator, From Beyond, and all that. And I was kind of mentioning that before we got kind of derailed talking about New England Nightmares, that like I had a lineup. I can't remember what was all in it, but it was just like the lineup I ended up doing was From Beyond, In the Mouth of Madness, and The Mist, and did the black and white version of The Mist. And there was a different lineup where I was going to do like I think it was like Dead and Buried, Dunwich Horror, and I can't remember what else it was. And we were trying to get a print of Dunwich Horror, and we're having a tough time. And I was just like, you know what? I just like scrapped the whole triple features. Like, why not do this instead? And that did nearly 500 people, From Beyond, In the Mouth of Madness, and The Mist. Yeah. So maybe my second guessing myself was correct in that regard. But I've always wanted to show the Dunwich Horror. It stars Sandra Dee, aka Gidget, which is weird that she's in a cult movie like that. Dean Stockwell, one of the great character actors. You know, some of you might know him from Quantum Leap. Some of you might know him like lip syncing into a light bulb from Blue Velvet. Just, you know, one of the best character actors. And he plays like, I'd say, although not Lovecraftian, I guess you can get the through line, he's kind of modeled after Aleister Crowley. But, you know, basically Dean Stockwell basically goes after Sandra Dee's character because he wants to do a ritual with the Necronomicon to bring the old ones back so the old ones can do old one shit. And, you know, it's very psychedelic because, you know, it's AIP produced, you know, American International Pictures, who made a ton of fucking Edgar Allan Poe stuff. Cool. Like, you know, all the classic Corman, Vincent Price ones. Mm-hmm. But they didn't really do, like, Lovecraft and stuff. And I feel like those were kind of in the public domain at the time, too, just as Poe. But maybe they were a little more unadaptable in some ways. Yeah. So it's, you know, again, haven't read the story.
Poe feels more like it's easy to put into like a Hammer horror or something. You know what I mean? Like that kind of vibe.
Yeah, I think because like there's certain beats in Poe stories that like you can stretch out and fill in, whereas with Lovecraft you got to think how you're filling it out. And for this screening, we're showing actually a rare Fuji print from a private collector, which I'm kind of stoked about. So, you know, worked out for the best because I think the print we would have got if I had done this in 2018 would have been faded and looked like shit. So, Fuji fades a little different from Eastman. This is for you film-going connoisseurs. It's like
way less red.
Yeah, Fuji tends to fade purple, but it still maintains a lot of color, you know? I think the best example when I showed Dark August back in for Camp Void last year, it was a Fuji print that had a little bit of Fuji fade, and it's a slight purple tint. But you still have the color, whereas like where Eastman starts turning pink, like the worse it gets, you're looking, if it's a night shot, you could be looking at a fucking red screen. Yeah. So, real treat to see that. So that is the April Occult lineup. Not Occult April, because that sucks. April Occult. We're going to take one last break here, but when we return, it's going to be, I'd say, a little bit of extended rewatch and listen here on the Cinematic Void Podcast.
You can take Salem out of the country, but you can't take the country out of Salem.
Country soft. Country fresh. That's the taste you get wherever you light up a Salem. Because Salem gently air softens every puff for the smoothest, most refreshing taste of any filter cigarette. So wherever you are, take a puff. It's fresh. It's springtime.
You can take Salem out of the country, but you can't take the country out of Salem.
Try Salem, America's largest selling menthol cigarette.
You can take Salem out of the country, but...
Welcome back. It's now time for... on the Cinematic Void Podcast, where we talk about all the things we've been reading, watching, and or listening to since the last time we recorded a podcast. And since, how long has it been? A month? Maybe? Something like that?
It's like 2 weeks.
It's been 2 weeks? Has it been 2 weeks? It's been longer than 2 weeks, dog.
Has it been 2 weeks? Has it been 2 weeks? Has it been 2 weeks?
I'm doing that fucking... Am I doing that register that I had to do for Mike's movie? Shout out to Mike Cuenca because he fucking somehow conned us into being in his new movie.
Yeah. It was really fun.
Somehow I think, like, on paper yours was more humiliating than my scene, but at the end of the day...
that wasn't humiliating. That was awesome.
And, well, you're just going to have to wait for... I don't even know what fucking movie that was in. Mike's, like, shooting 3 movies at the same time.
Yeah.
It could be in any of the 3. I guess we'll find out eventually.
We'll find out.
But, yeah, so, Nick, what have you been reading, watching, and or listening to?
All right. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm fucking busy, dude. The new Weapon X EP, split EP with World of Pleasure just came out. So I've been listening to those Weapon songs over and over. And there's a new Incendiary track called Bite the Hook. It's on their new record coming out called Change the Way You Think About Pain on Closed Casket. And it fucking rips, of course. And so does the Weapon songs. Just there you go. I've been listening to these 3 songs all week. And I did watch a bunch of movies, but we a number of the things that I've watched lately, we actually watched together, not even for the podcast, or if we didn't watch them together, we watched them like days apart because we lent each other the Blu-rays and such. So we might as well just do kind of our, do them in conjunction when you talk about yours. So anyway, what have you been reading, watching, and or listening to, Jim?
Well, for once, I actually read something. I got a self-help book that my girlfriend gave me called The New Codependency by Melody, was it Beatty? Taking care of the mental health stuff, so that's what I've been reading. Try not to read any film shit or whatever. I've been doing a lot of film writing, just finished up the zine issue 3 of the Cinematic Void zine stuff, so lots of writing, but that ain't what this fucking thing was when we came up with it. Listen, because I'm gonna save the watch for last, is a lot of stuff, more than the 3 songs you've been listening to, although I've listened to all 3 of those songs as well, and I think they all fucking rip in various ways. I think it was the day after Marathon, my girlfriend was going through my record collection, and she put on the Quatalacha. I don't even know if that's how you say it. Is it Quatalacha? This is going to be that fucking director Valerie and her Weaker Wonders again. I feel like we've done this bit before.
We've always called it Quatalacha.
So it's always going to be Quatalacha. It's Es Muerto, which is dead. Kind of a pop punk meets power violence grindcore band from like the Savannah, Georgia area. I guess early mid 90s through like early 2000s. Fucking phenomenal record. Probably one of my favorites. And because I was listening to that, it's like, I always wondered why those guys didn't do more bands, but they were in a band. Some of those guys were in a band called the Carbanas, which is like, it's like garage rock Ramones style stuff. Mm-hmm. And listen to the
Gigi King, who also has like solo records, was in the Carbonas and also Quatalacha.
Yeah.
And maybe Jesse too. Gentleman Jesse, he might have been in Quatalacha, but I mean, he was definitely in Carbonas, of course.
Yeah. Did I say Carbonas? I guess it's Carbonas. There is an O there, so.
Carbona's not glue.
But yeah, I've been listening to self-title and Your Moral Superiors, which is like a singles collection. Hayden Canadian folk song extraordinaire. It's got a new album coming out. It's pretty good. It's got 3 tracks that have been released on it. Some piano stuff, some kind of slightly rockin' folk rock stuff, and he did a song with Feist, which is really catchy.
Cool.
Been digging that. Drug Church released a single called Myopic.
I haven't listened yet.
I think it's kind of better than the last album. I like that last album, but I think it's a really catchy, kind of noisy pop song. Cool. So, kind of digging that. Stumbled on this band called Take My Chances, which I guess is a hardcore band from like New York, not New York City, but I think either Staten or Long Island. Sorry, I don't remember which island, but I guess they put out a record in 2008, and then they just decided to put out a new record 15 years later. Like, never really heard of them, but like this, I think because listening to Quatalacha, I wanted another Quatalacha kick, because like, there's only a 10-inch, a split EP, and like a discography, and kind of similar. I wouldn't say exact, but like kind of catchy, poppy, hardcore, well produced, so pretty cool EP. discovered this band. I saw it on No Echo. Came across like the Twitter feed, where once the Twitter feed was helpful. This band called, I think I said Wanderer. They have an EP out called Indulgence of the Unreal. It's kind of like definitely hardcore, but also sludge metal in there. So it's like there's some hardcore and fast parts, but then it's like sludge metal. I listened to some of their earlier stuff where they were more of a hardcore band. Kind of reminds me of Feather and Bone, who started out as like kind of a straight up noisy hardcore band and then just became a death metal band. So I think kind of similar, genre flip or evolution, whatever you want to call it. Kind of good stuff. I found myself going on a kick for a record label, and I don't normally, do record. I haven't probably stand a record label since like fucking Slap a Ham in late 90s or early 2000s, where I'm like, gotta get everything, listen to the thing. But Dune Altar, which is from here, like they put out that Fey Tooth record, which I loved, which was one of my favorite records of last year. And I kind of was like, I just want to listen to some other things they put out. And Jesus Christ, it's fucking bangers.
Yeah.
And I listened to the Head Cut self-titled EP, which is kind of punky. Like I'd say, I don't want to say new wave, but maybe new wave because I don't have a better word. Post-punk. There we go.
Yeah.
Really good. And also...
I saw them probably in January.
Oh, no shit.
They're really good. In Ventura.
Oh, yeah. Oh, was that the show with Dummy and...
It's Catholic Spit.
Sorry. Catholic Spit, the other band. Sorry. Catholic Spit and was it fucking...
I don't know who else played it all. Just Catholic Spit and Head Cut.
Oh,
I can't think of a single other band. I mean, like 2 other bands played, but I have no clue.
I was trying to think. What was the fucking... I can't think of her name. Like, Snail Mail. Was that the same show? Or was
that was with Dummy.
Oh, okay. See, I got them all confused. You're fucking traveling around, seeing some shows.
There you go.
Yeah. Also on the same label was the Lung Psychic Tombs. A little bit older record. I guess it's like... I don't know. It's like there's definitely some blast beat. It's like hardcore, but meets like garage rock. But done really well. Like 2 things that would be a shit show for most bands, like pulled off extremely well. There's a new single by this band called Rival Cults, which I believe are members of like Exhumed and like death metal bands and stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I saw like listed, like I think the drummer who used to be Colonel Jones, who used to be the drummer of Exhumed, is the drummer of this band. It's like straight up goth rock, like Sisters of Mercy, Fields of Nephilim, that kind of shit. And it's just like I don't know, I had a little bit of an itch for that kind of stuff. So like that single drop was like, holy fuck. Think about something like, yeah, I just want something like that. And then lands on your fucking doorstep. And another single, same label. I feel like I'm getting paid to do this, but like just lots of good shit. Is this band called Iris. And the song's called Ricochet. They're kind of like female fronted, like electronic doom metal. There's like definitely some like ambient electronic stuff going on. So lots of kick-ass stuff. So that's what I've been listening to. I got a couple things that I didn't watch with you, but watched Blowout for the millionth time at this point. Watched with my girlfriend who had never seen it, and she's from Philadelphia, and she could actually point out locations like, oh, I know where that was, and would tell me exactly where that was. And I was like, wow. Cool. I mean, we lived like 90 minutes away from Philadelphia for most of our adult lives, and it's strange they don't know shit about it. Then I think back, I couldn't point out too many landmarks in Baltimore either, so if someone's like, here's this movie shot in Baltimore, do you know where it is? Like, you show me a John Waters movie, I don't know where any of those fucking places are.
You're telling me you can't take me to the Liberty Bell right now?
Well, like, that's obvious, but I couldn't take you to like some of the other fucking locations or the place that Divine ate dog shit at.
You can't take me to the Rocky Stairs right now?
Oh, fuck off with that. I could take you to those things because I could look them up on Google. But
no, what I'm saying is not look them up.
No, I couldn't do that. I wouldn't know where any of those things are. There we go. So, yeah. But, you probably agree, Blowout, probably one of the greatest movies ever made. It's definitely a top 10 movie for me. Like, straight up. Like, that movie just gets better and better. It's a fucking masterpiece. Also, when she was in town, because I didn't make her watch enough movies in a theater, we watched movies at the apartment. We watched Pieces. Again, one of the greatest films ever. Not in the same way Blowout is, but it's a lot of fun. You've seen Pieces, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from the same producer, Dick Randall, who made all kinds of crazy exploitation shit, we watched Don't Open Till Christmas. which has the same star as Pieces, or one of the same stars as Pieces, and it's about a killer that kills people dressed as Santa Claus. And maybe not great. I've seen it before.
Not great to watch a Christmas movie in March.
Not great because the movie's itself not great. I mean, anytime there's a Santa Claus getting fucking murdered, top-notch shit.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the stuff in between doesn't work, but there's a really great sequence in the London dungeon that they shot at, which is really cool, and then has one of the most craziest cameos ever put on film. It's Caroline Munro, who you know from Maniac and stuff like that. She appears in the movie as herself performing a musical number. I don't know what kind of fucking like contract she's like, I'll be in this movie if I can do a song.
Yeah.
And I just play myself, which is just fucking wild. But those are things that we watched. Now, I guess we'll talk about the things we either jointly watched or watched pretty close together here. And the first one is Project Wolf Hunting, which was, I think we were talking about maybe recording a podcast one day when we just came over and we watched this instead. And like, I know this played Beyond Fest, but because we were both balls deep in like making sure shows actually fucking happen at Beyond Fest with like DCPs and stuff. Didn't see this, but watched it over here, and I don't know. I really liked it, and I was kind of like, damn, this is fucking great, and then it just kind of didn't end.
Yeah, it's a bit long, but yeah, it's great. It's a mashup of many things.
It's like, you know, there's Con Air, there's like
Universal Soldier,
there's Return of the Living Dead, and like
you could even make the argument for Terminator and Alien and
Predator. Yeah,
definitely Predator.
It definitely like each scene kind of like flips like to a different movie, but it as the same movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like not in a bad. It doesn't take away from it.
No, it's not. When I say it kind of flips to like a different movie every few scenes, I'm not saying that it's like jarring. It's just like it appropriately switches gears each time, and even when it gets to the ending, and even when it kind of just like doesn't stop when it's like too much of a good thing. Because I remember when we were watching it, like, this is a fucking at least a 4-star movie, maybe 5 as we're going, but like it just like.
But also, I would say fun to watch with someone else.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have enjoyed it quite as much had I just been sitting here alone watching it. So, definitely get a group of people together and throw this thing on, and it'd probably be a fuck of a lot of fun. It's a blast.
I mean, it's gory as shit. There's one scene where I think you got up, and I was like, oh fuck, and like you're like, hold up, and we had to rewind it. Like that scene where he hits the dude with the sledgehammer. Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so many oh shit moments in the movie, and like it's lots of practical gore effects, like geysers of fucking blood. You know, there's just a couple things like, you know, maybe I was being too harsh, or maybe because it took me out of it. Like there's a few, like, I don't want to say bad, but like the effects are so good, so when something isn't on that same level, it doesn't. It kind of just
you actually notice.
Yeah. But yeah, it was an incredible thing to watch. And again, I think that's definitely a movie to watch with the audience, or, you know, watch with a bunch of friends in your house. Yeah, it came out on Wellgo, which has put out a lot of, like, you know, Asian cinema from Korea, China, Japan, that kind of stuff. So
cool.
Really good label, really good distributor. Next thing we saw, we both saw this in the theater, kind of surprisingly, which was Irreversible.
Oh yeah, at the Arrow.
Gaspar Noé in person.
Yep, Gaspar was there. Came up for the intro for both films and did a Q&A between. And so it was Irreversible, and you didn't stick around, but it was Irreversible and Irreversible the Straight Cut, both on DCP. And again, Gaspar doesn't do this very often, so the fact that this happened at all, like, I had to make sure I was there.
Yeah, I mean, homie Nikolai was there, definitely geeked out and got some shit signed by Gaspar.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he was like
fucking sick.
He's like, should I do it? I was like, just fucking do it.
Hell yeah.
You only live once.
Mm-hmm. Although, I mean, but Gaspar made himself pretty available the whole night. Like he was just kind of chilling and hanging out in the theater and wandering around and talking to people. You know, he was having a good ass time. So he didn't even really seem to be bothered, and people weren't like bothering him anyway. It was actually, everyone was very respectful.
Yeah.
And some people took a little more time than others, but yeah, he was just chilling, man. And when I got up at the end of the night, he was just sitting right behind us.
Just watching the movie.
Like, all right, there he is again.
I mean, it you know, I hadn't seen Irreversible in the theater since its original theatrical run, which was I can't even remember.
2003, 2002, 2003.
Yeah, insane.
In fact, no, the night of the screening, the night before the screening was the actual 20th anniversary of the American release of Irreversible.
Goddamn.
So, and we just we couldn't actually do it on that day, and that's why it was on Wednesday.
I mean, I was kind of curious to see how it played because most of the people in the crowd had not seen it. And when I originally saw it, like, it cleared the fucking theater.
Yeah.
I think
I only saw like one person walk out.
Yeah. There's definitely some people that went on dates, I think, that got up at the end of the movie and left before the Q&A started. I'm sure that's an awkward car ride home. I mean, I was there with a date, but like she had already seen it. We sat next to the homie Andrew Furtado from Severin, and he was like busting my chops. It's like, like, cause I think Andrew was saying, his wife's like, should I come with the kid? Should we hang out and watch this movie? He's like, no. And he's like, had to explain what happens in the movie. She's like, yeah, me and the kid are going to stay home kind of thing. So, but, saw a lot of friendly faces and, it played really well. Yeah. And it's just like, it's just, now I haven't seen the straight cut yet. And like, I guess we don't have to get in your opinion of it, but it's just like I mean,
I had seen it. I have the Blu-ray of the straight cut as well, but it was my first time seeing it in the theater. It had screened at the New Art a few weeks ago, and Nikolai had went to that.
He's gonna end up on a fucking FBI list before this run is done.
And then we also just bought tickets so that we can see Irreversible and Lahane at New Bev next month. So we're going again. So yeah, we are on a watch list. But yeah, it's playing on film. It's a new, they struck a new print, but yeah, it'll be cool. I got my film. I mean, I'm gonna start experimenting with all of his films, and I think if you take mushrooms at the beginning of Irreversible or Climax, they probably hit pretty hard at a pretty weird bad part. It'll really fuck you up, man. It'll really ruin your fucking day.
Well, that's gonna be for another podcast when you do that experiment. Jesus Christ. And I guess for the last movie that we didn't watch this one together, but I watched it and you saw my review. It's like, oh fuck, and I was like, here, I'm just gonna loan you the Blu-ray, which is Todd Field's Tar. Chris Lemire, who works at the Cinematheque and one of the architects of Bleak Wheat, had like been championing this movie this whole time. I think he saw it at Telluride or something like that.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And he was like, "You're gonna love this movie, Jim," and he just kept saying it. And like, Todd showed up and we did a screening of like all the 3 films he's directed and stuff like that. And it's just like, and I've seen.
If after watching Tar this week, I wish I had a time machine because I did, and we can maybe or maybe not get into that, but I did just watch his other 2 films as well because of seeing Tar. And goddamn, man, I love his work.
I mean, it's, I hadn't seen the other ones in a long time, but it's just like, yeah, I was at Target of all fucking places, and I was just like grocery shopping or whatever, and like they had one copy of it on Blu-ray, and it was like $17.99, and I was like, yeah, fuck it.
Yeah.
It's like I was gonna rent it on Amazon, but it's like I feel like when I rent new movies on Amazon, I'm just not that invested. Yeah. Because then I feel like I'm under pressure to watch this thing within 24 hours once I rent it. So, which is weird because it's like I could spend $6 or I could spend 17, and it's like in this case I'm glad I spent 17 because this was like holy shit. Like this, if I had watched this like when it came out, this would have been my favorite movie of last year. And I've seen it have weird polarizing reviews, mostly from people that kind of like misinterpret it or whatever. And I gotta admit, I haven't seen most of the fucking Oscar winners or the Oscar nominees or everything everywhere at once or whatever that A24 thing is. But like,
you didn't see it?
I haven't seen it because like there had a couple times I was supposed to go see it and it just didn't happen. And like, I'm gonna paraphrase. I think Michelle Yeoh is one of the greatest like just people, humans in cinema. All of her Hong Kong work, every time she's done it like American, I think she's incredible. With that said, I don't know how you beat Cate Blanchett as Lydia Tarr. I don't know how.
You don't.
I mean, the awards did, but like it's like Tar is just a fucking beast of a movie. It's like it's the kind of movie that like I wish more people would make, and it just doesn't happen. I mean, probably with good reason, but it's just like, you know, I think we both kind of watched this movie slightly different. I went in and realized right off the bat it's a comedy to me, like a dark comedy, and it's basically taking a very pretentious, curated, you know, character, which is Lydia Tarr, who has this persona. I mean, here's the funny thing. When you start watching, you thought Lydia Tarr was a real person, right?
Oh, I'm not the only one.
Oh, no, most people do.
Yeah.
Most people think it's based on, I mean, they probably had inspiration from certain things.
I mean, you know, I could maybe name one or two people that I know at all that could start naming like modern
composers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But... So just meaning like, you know, that's not an art form that's like in most of our just like peripheral, you know. It's just not something I know much about, and I enjoy classical music from time to time, but I couldn't tell you like a composer's name currently.
No,
you know, so like I don't know, just the way that it was presented, it wasn't like a Blair Witch thing. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't like a weird campaign to make people believe that this was a real composer or something, but whatever they did, it still worked.
Yeah, because like you don't see Cate Blanchett, you just see Lydia Tarr.
Straight up. And
the way it's the perfect fucking slow burn.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's things that set up and it gets paid off.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, you know, I've seen a lot of bad interpretations, but like, you know, ultimately it's like people are like, well, it's a movie about, you know, cancel culture and this, that, how cancel culture is bad. It's not about that. It's about a person that is kind of a terrible person who ends up, the ultimate point is like, yeah, they get in trouble when they lose the career, the prestigious part of their career, but they still working, they're still making fucking money.
Yeah. When
she's like conducting Monster Hunter or whatever that thing is at the end, like that's the fucking joke. It's not that.
Well, I listened to a Todd Field interview, and he said, you know, Lydia Tarr's fate wasn't the worst thing that he thought would happen to her. It's the worst thing that she thought would happen to her.
Yeah. That's the thing, because she's like that. Lydia Tarr is making fucking bank being overseas conducting this thing.
Yeah.
But it's beneath her.
Mm-hmm.
It's an ego thing. Her ego's been fucking deflated. And like something where like she's still like entertaining people, but she has to control it and like she has to conduct it, like, you know, she can't improvise, she can't do anything. It's just the job, a well-paying job. And it's just like she's demeaned because the lifestyle and the ego center, because like you got to think of things in there when she's like posing as the same composer that she's doing a tribute to and like all that shit. Like it's just, it's like, it's very subtle because she's a fucking terrible person to a lot of people, but does it in a way where it doesn't read right away. It's just like, oh, you know, she's just doing this thing. It's like, no, she's fucking cutting throats.
Yeah.
Like when she gets rid of that one guy where she brings up something about like, and he gets like offended, like she triggers him and then turns it back on him. Like that is fucking malicious.
Mm-hmm.
But like there's the other things. It's like she literally saw a girl that she wanted to like fuck. And recognized her shoes during the audition so she could bring her in the orchestra, so she could like doing all kinds of like grody manipulative stuff that is like usually given to male protagonists. And I saw one of the complaints like, how dare you in this day and age have a woman, you know, do things like that. It's like, I hate to tell people, but like there's terrible people regardless of gender, regardless of race, regardless of religion. There's fucking terrible people. And you gotta recognize that, like, you can make a movie about any kind of sort of terrible person. And Lydia Tarr is a fucking piece of shit human being. Yeah. And that's kind of the point. It's not that you're supposed to empathize.
Right. She's Travis Bickle.
She's Travis Bickle. And that was the thing we were talking about, because you know, we didn't talk, you didn't say.
That was off air. Okay.
Well, it was off air, but we should talk about it. It's a good point. It's
I just watched Taxi Driver for the first time in many, many years. So we were just talking about that earlier.
Yeah, but the thing that people seem to misrepresent is that because Travis Bickle is front and center doesn't mean he's the moral compass of the movie. It's just you're observing like really you're watching like a fucking fucked up person. And like, I mean, it's just, you know,
you're not supposed to feed a cat to an ATM.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be that guy. You're not supposed to want to be Lydia Tarr.
No.
You're not.
Exactly. You're just like, just because you're seeing those people, like, you know, this again with, like, we talked about this before, like, if you only consume art where everything's safe and, like, everyone's, like, a good person, and anyone that's bad or morally bankrupt is, like, eradicated or murdered or whatever happens at the end, or they get their comeuppance, it's like, it's not how the world works.
Yeah.
And I think people just, like, can't engage with that stuff. And it's just like, just because Lydia Tarr, I mean, the movie's called Tar, and it's about Lydia Tarr. You know,
a real person
that isn't real, but feels goddamn real.
Mm-hmm.
Like right from that fucking Q&A they start the movie with. That was my favorite thing, because like having worked at the theater and having to sit through like Q&As like that.
Yeah, totally.
It was like, this is too perfect. And it's just like, you know, it's, you know, there's a lot of things to unpack in the movie, and I think it's probably one of the best movies that's probably been made in the last decade. If not longer. Like, it's, you know, Todd Field's only made like 3 fucking movies.
Yeah, I think all 3 are masterpieces in their own way, and all 3 are just dark as fuck.
Yeah.
He's incredible. He
Yeah.
truly is. I said it earlier, I'll say it again. I wish I was at that fucking screening and sat through all 3 of those films in one day and seen a Q&A with him. Damn it, I wish I could have been there.
Yeah.
I learned so much. It really did. Just a quick aside, just I learned so much at work. It's funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I just like, I miss these events and go, and I always find out, you know, after they happen what they are, and do my research, and then I'm bummed that I miss them, you know. But it's a great education.
I mean, the thing is, like, working in a theater, and especially when stuff like that pops up, it's like, you know, also worked all week. So it's like, by the time...
Yeah, sometimes I'm working these events, you know,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So you can't watch the film. You know, there's only so much you can really take in. But, you know, you were familiar with Todd Field before Tar. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Whereas even though these were... I don't think they like won awards, but they were nominated.
Oh,
they got plenty of...
I think he's been... It's not, I think, I know for pretty sure that all 3 films have been nominated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's like a Kubrick disciple, and like that's why everything's
Right.
so fucking
was,
meticulous.
He was the piano player in Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah. So it's like, but it's just weird because, like, you know, I've seen people call this movie like blatant Oscar bait. It's not blatant Oscar bait because, like, there would have been a heroic turn.
Yeah.
You know, it's like character studies, and like, you know, even though it's not a real character, I think a lot of people are like, I don't like biopics. It's like, dog, it's not a real biopic, but like that's how powerful it is. People think it's a goddamn biopic, when really it's also kind of a send up of those fucking movies. Yeah. Because, you know, most biopics, like, even if the person's like a piece of shit outside of maybe Raging Bull, where like at the end it's like you don't have any sympathy for like Jake LaMotta. He's still a fucking terrible fucking person. Right. Actually, that's probably the better comparison than Taxi Driver.
Yeah, I see that.
Tar, Raging Bull, where it's like people that at absolute career high getting fucking knocked down a peg, and they still exist. They're still doing something that they want to do or in the vein of, but like it's not their idealized life. I'm sure Jake LaMotta wanted to be like the world heavyweight and like retire and like, you know, popping champagne and all that stuff. And Lydia Tarr just being like the most beloved and well-known, you know, orchestra conductor, composer, that kind of thing. Yeah. And they both get fates where like, isn't that bad? Like most people would be content with where they're at, but not to them. Yeah. Because that's their fate. As you said, the Todd Field quote, it's like, it's not the worst thing I think that would happen to Lydia Tarr. It's the worst thing Lydia Tarr would think would happen to Lydia Tarr.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you haven't seen Tar yet, like, do yourself a favor and go see it. Like, I think probably, and, you know, people will probably argue back and forth because, you know, what you like is subjective. But I think it's an extraordinary movie. And, like, I don't really, when I see movies, I see, like, oh, it was okay. You know, glad I saw this. Like, this is a movie that, like, stayed with me. And I've thought about every fucking day since I've seen it.
I haven't shut up all fucking week about all 3 of these movies. So to anyone that could possibly listen to me, they've heard about all 3 of these films. So there you go.
So yeah, that's going to wrap up the Cinematic Void podcast on Tar, but or just wrap up the Cinematic Void podcast in general. We got, you know, maybe get that Freddy's knockoff episode knocked out at some point this year. Stay tuned. If you see it pop up, we did it. If you don't see it popped up, means still need to watch those fucking movies. But until next time, see you in the void.
All right, cut the cards once with your left hand to the left, with your left hand. The answer is yes.
Yes, what?
The cards say that yes, you should stay here. You have 4 votes yes and 2 votes no. This is the past, the present, and the future of the question that you asked. In the past, you have been concerned about too many things.